In this video, you're going to learn what you need to know about the 2023 Ford Bronco. Going to be covering off some differences between the 22 versus 23, showing you different technology you can find inside and out, fuel economy, what's going on underneath the hood, and a bunch of other things. But if you're looking for tech-specific walkthroughs, like you want to know how to use the steering wheel buttons, the cluster screen, things like that, check down in the description of the video. You can find that info, a build link for this one, and also the contact information for Formula Ford, who were nice enough to lend this thing to me for the afternoon to shoot the video for you guys today. But let's dive into it, because this thing is the Wildtrak trim level, and it's got the high package on it. Since this one is the Wildtrak, that means that you're looking at the Sasquatch Package standard included. But that Sasquatch, you're going to be able to find in all of the lower trim levels of the Bronco. But this thing is a beast. A few cool things about the Sasquatch package is that you're looking at Bilstein shock absorbers. On top of that, you've got these beautiful 17-inch wheels that are blacked out with that bucking Bronco right in the very middle. And then it's also got 35-inch rubber. So this thing is meant for off-road capabilities. It is amazing. The Wildtrak you're strictly going to find in the advanced 4x4 system. This thing does have the front and rear locking differentials, which is useful if you're going to be taking this thing off-road. This thing does have beadlock capable wheels. And what that means is that if you get the aftermarket kit for the beadlock system, you can air these tires down without having to worry about the rubber slipping off the rim. So very useful from that perspective. If you're going to be taking this thing through really rugged terrain, rocks and things like that, that's when you're going to want to air it down. But like I said, this thing is an absolute beast. You're looking at different options for waterfording, 35-ish inches when you're looking at the Wildtrak with the Sasquatch package. But when you get into the Raptor version, that vehicle sits a little bit higher, which means that you're maxing out at 37 inches instead. On top of that, the Everglades was introduced this year, and that includes a winch and a snorkel. So if you're going to be doing some off-roading where you know you're going to be getting wet, it's a pretty good option, and you might want to look at that Everglades instead. There also is the 4.7 final drive ratio. So it's not useful for gas mileage at all, but it is useful for off-roading. There are a series of different types of fender flares that you're looking at, so ones that are going to sit a little bit higher. The option for body color, just depending on which model of the vehicle that you're in. And because this one has the high package, you've got the side view mounted cameras, they're the backup camera, and that front-facing camera for a full 360 view. And that's included in that beautiful 12-inch multimedia screen. But the front end here, it's beautiful. Like, I love the Bronco lettering that goes right across the grille. LED headlamps, fog lamps down there as well. And then this one also has two heavy-duty front tow hooks. So you're going to have 4 max tow hooks that are available, just depending on which model of the vehicle that you're in. So 2 in the front, 1 in the back, or potentially 2 in the back. Again, depending on the trim level. This one does have the fog lamps there, but when you get the heavy-duty modular bumper instead, those fog lamps are just not going to be available. And that's the same thing with some of the sensing systems available as an option, is this one does have that forward sensing system, but it's useful, especially if you're going on a trail. But the big one is that front-facing camera. So you can push that camera in front of you to see what obstacles are going on around you as you go if you're traveling solo. But this thing has all sorts of body protection on top of that. So underneath, steel bash plates, which are always useful. And then there's the option for full body protection inside of this thing on top of that. So if you are planning on getting a Bronco to do some heavy-duty off-roading, there is some really great technology and some great features that are available right from the factory or aftermarket instead. One other thing that I like about the Wildtrak is that right on the hood, there's also a little Wildtrak badge. It just makes it pop that little bit more. Getting underneath the hood of the Bronco is straightforward. So just underneath, right above the O in Bronco, there's a release, and you're just going to lift up, and boom, just on a regular prop bar. But the Bronco does have 3 available engine choices for the 2023 model year. It's either going to be the 2.3 liter, which is available as a 7-speed manual or 10-speed automatic. You've got the 2.7 liter turbo, which is strictly going to be available 10-speed auto. And then you've got the 3-liter turbo, which was introduced for the Raptor trim level. And that 3-liter turbo is a beast. So the 2.7 liter engine has 315 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque, which is pretty impressive. But one thing that I love that Ford's done with the Bronco specifically is they've also showcased the numbers if you actually run a higher octane fuel. So if you use that premium 94 octane instead, you're looking at 330 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. So you could unlock the truest performance inside of this thing. But it's a matter of preference. Like gas prices right now, like $1.59 a liter. So a little pricey, and that's just for regular 87. So you don't need to worry about using a premium fuel. It's just that if you want the highest or the best possible performance, that's where you're going to want to be. The Ford warranty is pretty good. You're looking at, for your basic 3-year, 36,000 mile or 60,000 kilometers. And then your powertrain is going to be a 5-year, 60,000 mile or 100,000 kilometers. So you do have pretty good coverage there, which is good. You want to make sure that you're at least doing regularly scheduled oil changes on this thing, regular maintenance on top of that. Like these things, you're running like up to $100,000 on it. Just make sure you're taking care of your ride. The fender flare for the rear tire kind of sits back and it rolls into the bumper very nicely. There's the reverse sensing system that's available there. Single rear tow hook, just because this is the Wildtrak version of the Bronco. But you do have the option for 2, depending on which model that you're in. And this specific one also has the tow package. So you've got your 7-pin on the left, 4-pin on the right, and then your receiver on top of that. Looking at towing numbers inside of this thing, the 2.3 and the 2.7 liter turbo are good for up to 3,500 pound towing capacity. And then when you look at the Raptor, that 3 liter turbo beast, 4,500 pound max towing. So kind of plan accordingly, but if you're looking for the best possible numbers, you're absolutely going to want to look at the Raptor, but still 3,500 pounds is pretty respectable. Now, this back door also has the intelligent access. So as long as you've got the key fob on you, you can push there to lock or just slide your hand in order to be able to unlock. So very straightforward. But I mean, when we have this thing open, there is a pretty good amount of space back here. And I mean, obviously, because this is the 4-door version, so you lose a little bit of space in that 2-door. And then depending on what your cargo needs are, it might even be worth it to look at that hard top instead. Because the downside of having this soft top is how far up it'll go. So we've got a little release off to the left side and the right side, and then you can kind of lift up. But this is as high as she's going. So you're not going to be able to get it past that point. But I mean, realistically, it's not terrible all at the same time. And then in order to close it, you got to kind of give it some downforce and kind of pull it closed there. Just make sure both sides are there before you swing the door closed again. There's not too much stuff back here at all. Like there's nothing off to the left side. Off to the right, you've got a little speaker in the back. And then there's also a little light off to the one side and a 12-volt power point there too. This specific one also has the rubberized floor liners right from the factory. There's a little tab that you can lift up. There's the jack stand and then the white spigot on top of that. Now, you could change the tire yourself if you wanted to, but as a Ford owner, you also have access to Ford roadside assistance for the powertrain warranty. So in Canada, we're 5-year, 100,000 kilometers. So if you need things like fuel delivery, winching, that is available there for that 5-year, 100,000 K, which is nice, but this is pretty good. Now, in order to fold the second row seats down, you're definitely going to have to do it from the second row. So on the inside here, there's a button just to the left-hand side of the headrest. Pull the seat down. Boom. Flat fold there, which is great, but I mean, it opens things up so nicely. And I mean, obviously with the measurements, there's a little bit of a lip in the back there for the second row, but it gives you a pretty good amount of space. It's nice. Now there is obviously the carpeted liner back here, but you do also have the option for a rubberized tray right from the factory. You can do it aftermarket if you want to. And then there are a few tie downs that are available back here too. You're going to find the Bronco either as a 2-door or a 4-door. And that's just going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you're in. So which way you go is going to depend on you. The 2-door, a little bit more nimble, slightly better on fuel economy because of the lower weight, but it's a matter of preference there. Height-wise on this thing is going to be plus or minus a few inches, just depending on which model of the vehicle that you've got as well. Because when you get into the Sasquatch package, the higher wheels, bigger ground clearance are going to make this thing that little bit taller. Like I'm 6 feet tall, and this thing's towering over me just a tiny little bit. This one is just the regular soft top. You do have the option for the molded hard top. There are a few easy open options on top of that. Got that Bronco badge right along the very back. Front side of the fob, there's the unlock button, lock button, remote start, horn or panic alarm, and then there's also the emergency access key. So if your fob's ever died, you can use that in order to get inside. You can lock the center console and things like that as well. But one really cool thing is that this also has the option for remote window down. So you can push the unlock button twice, and on the second button press, you're going to hold. So you're going to go 1, 2, and hold. You can press the lock button to stop it part way, and then double press again in order to keep the cycle going. Down they go. Now, it is going to be powered down, but it's manual back up. Still pretty nice that you can air this thing out, though. Filling up fuel inside of the Bronco is also straightforward, and it's just along the driver's side. Capless system. And one nice thing, I love that Ford's included this. I pointed this out last year, too. But the different body styles that were available for the original Bronco back in '66. It's actually kind of cool. I love that little Easter egg that's there. But I did mention, underneath the hood, just regular 87 octane is the minimum manufacturer's recommendation. Try running it with 91 if you've got it in the budget, though. Use it for 2 or 3 cycles so you can really get a feel for how much more of an improved performance that you get. And if you don't like it, just revert back to 87, which is the minimum manufacturer's recommendation. There are some small changes from the 22 to the 23 model. So a few notable ones, some of the colors are different. Unfortunately, the Cyber Orange Metallic is no longer available. It was my favorite color in the Bronco, but it's not available. And then Ford also introduced the Heritage models. So there's the regular Heritage, and then the Heritage Limited on top of that. So it's going to give you different feature sets and some pretty funky and unique looks. I'm just waiting for them to release the OJ edition. So this is going to highlight orange and let you know if somebody's into the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. There's the option for the 5-digit number pad there as well. So you could get it aftermarket if you wanted to. And this thing does have intelligent access. So as long as you've got the key fob on you, you can push there to lock, slide your hand in to unlock, and in you go. But nice basic highlights along the door, and there's not too much to the door because these things are fully removable. So you can easily remove the door if you want to, which is great. But you've got your basic handle there, unlock lock buttons, handle to close, and a little net. And then just that little lift to let you know this is where you're going to lift the thing up if you're removing the door. But on the inside here, Bronco handle, which is great. That Bronco lettering, nice blue highlight. Moving down, series of other switches. So the ones on the outside here are for the zone lighting. So you can turn on the lighting for the side view mirrors. Figure out what's going on with your running lamps. I always just recommend keeping it in the auto setting. Unless you're off-roading, you want them on all the time, whatever the case may be. Turn your fog lamps on or off. And then increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen, as well as that multimedia screen. There's the electronic parking brake, and then the hood release on top of that. Now, the seats inside of this thing, really nice. Few different options that are available. We've got this like nice blue stitching that follows through. It's kind of a nice highlight. And then this one obviously is going to be a manual seat. So you've got the bar there. Adjust what's going on with your lumbar support. Lift your seat up or drop it back down. And then you can also adjust your backrest there as well. Getting into this thing could be a little bit tricky because I'm 6 feet tall. But I mean, one nice thing about the Bronco is that you've got grab handles all over the place. So I mean, realistically, hopping inside is not impossible all at the same time. There are some really good videos that are out that feature how to remove the doors. So I am going to link down in the description of the video covering off how you can easily remove these things. And then there's this nice kind of look right along the whole dash, same color scheme that we saw along the door. You've got a few different speakers that are up there. And this one is just the regular speaker system, but there is the option for the 10 speaker Bang & Olufsen instead. Up along the top, there's also a little mount. So if you wanted to mount like a GoPro or another accessory, you've got that option. This is nice though. Beautiful bucking Bronco right in the very middle. There is the regular cruise control system. There is the option for the adaptive cruise control system on top of that. So you'd have some additional buttons there. Off to the right side, basics of the steering wheel. So You can answer or hang up on a phone call, voice command prompt, change songs, radio stations, and things like that. But if you want a full walkthrough, like on the steering wheel, the cluster screen, or the Sync 4 media screen, check down in the description below for that walkthrough instead. But one thing I can tell you, steering wheel inside of this thing is going to be a manual adjust, just by your left knee there. And then there's the option for the heated steering wheel when you get into the Luxe package. So strictly available Luxe when you look at the Wildtrak specifically. There's some good highlights throughout though, like especially when you look at the Bronco handles. There's one on the driver passenger side, and then one down the center stack on top of that, just to the right of the shifter. Very useful if you're taking this thing off-road and things get a little bit too crazy. So it is nice that's available there. Trail Turn Assist is an interesting one. And one of the cool things about Trail Turn Assist is that it's going to lock out your innermost rear tire when you go to spin the wheel. So if you're taking this thing on trails and things are a little bit tight, you could turn that on in order to be able to spin and you'll be good there. But there were some people that had mentioned that their vehicles are giving them issues after using Trail Turn Assist. But it does look like everything that I've found in forums and things like that, the people that were running into issues using Trail Turn Assist also had aftermarket upgrades done to their Bronco. So that's an interesting talking point. Like, if you're going to be upgrading your vehicle and you're doing it from a third-party provider, your warranty could potentially be void if something happens. So you do have the option of going through Ford Performance instead. Not quite as many upgrades that are available, but if you want to maintain your manufacturer's warranty, that's the way you're going to want to go. So this specific one has the High package, which has some pretty good feature sets, but when you get into that Luxe, that's when you get into a heated steering wheel, 10-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, wireless charge pad, and a few other great features. So it's going to depend on what you personally care about, what your budget is, but wireless charge pad is nice. There is wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay inside of this thing, too. Sync 4 media screen inside of this thing is very straightforward. You've got a series of different sources that are available, so AM, FM, Sirius XM, and Bluetooth. If you had a USB stick with MP3s, you could also plug it in down under. This thing, as you see there, has 2 USB power ports, a USB-C as well as a traditional USB Type-A. But when you do that, all of a sudden, we've got a USB device now.
Step 3, you grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
So I have it at mid-volume, so it's up halfway. I've got the bass up 3 points and then the treble down 3 points as well. For a phone, you can connect over Bluetooth if you wanted to stream audio. There is wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as well, so those are available as an option. But if you want to walk through on how to set that up, you'll find it down in the description of this video. This thing does have factory navigation, beautiful pinch to zoom. You can do a full screen on top of that. And I mean, as you see there, very, very responsive, which is great. A few different apps that are available. So as I mentioned, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, bunch of basic settings for the vehicle itself. So Ford Assistant, Valet Mode, which is essentially going to lock the screen out so people can't use anything. And then a series of different features, so driver assistance, zone lighting, which is interesting because you can also see what's going on all the way around you there. So you can turn on individual lights if you wanted to. Really useful if you're working later on at night or you're going through and you're tailgating and things like that. Moving back. Towing is kind of neat as well because you've got connection checklists and trailer lights and sway control and things like that. So as you're going to connect a trailer, it's going to let you know this is what you've got to do. Really useful, especially if it's your first time or two connecting a trailer. Sway control. If the vehicle recognizes there's trailer sway going on, it's automatically going to apply engine braking to get that sway under control. It's pretty good. Basic clock settings and things like that. It's nice overall. But this thing also, when we shift into rear, so reverse there, you can see there you've got full 360 view off to the side, backup camera. You can move into rear view, and then you've also got a split view there as well, which is kind of neat. Back to a 360 view. So it is cool that you've got that option. And then you can also plus down if you wanted to look at your rear camera. So it's essentially pointing down. Really useful if you're going to be doing a hitch setup instead. With this thing, hot camera button to get to that as well. Volume rocker, start-stop system. So that's the one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine if you're stopped for an extended period of time. The beeping that you get is if you back up, you could turn that off. You could tune this way. You could also tune by selecting it on the vehicle there, or you can press a voice command prompt in order to tune stations that way. There's dual zone climate control available inside of this thing. Do you want it going to your windshield face feet, some sort of combination of the above, and then heated first row seats are available here on top of that. I did mention down under, so this thing, little cover for your USB power points. There would be the option for a wireless charge pad inside of this thing, which, I mean, this one obviously doesn't have. Shifter inside of this thing is great with your bucking Bronco. Plus minus buttons, little Team America action going on with your American flag. Park reverse neutral drive, and then you can drop it into the manual mode to be able to select what's going on with the gears as you go. So you can see there, right in the cluster. Plus minus, obviously, we can only go 2 gears because we're parked right now. And then I did mention, so you've got the option for either a 10-speed automatic or a 7-speed manual transmission. I love that this thing's got a manual transmission as an option, but you can only find the 7-speed manual inside of the 2.3-liter engine. So it's still a nice option that it's available there on top of that. It would just be kind of cool to see the 2.7 with that 7-speed as well. This is our little rotary shifter in order to move between different goat modes, so go over any terrain. So you've got normal mode, eco, sport, slippery, mud ruts, sand, and then Baja. And then each mode does something different there, so it's going to play with your traction, stability control, shift points, and things like that. And then it'll also switch you out to different modes. Like if you're in sport mode, you are going to move into 4 auto, which is great. And shooting back down. So, a few other things you can permanently lock out because this is the advanced 4x4 system. You do have the option of selecting any of these options. 4 auto means the vehicle is going to determine what's going on with the drive. You've got 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low. And then there's also 1 pedal driving if you're going on trails. Kind of cool. You've got this like little Bronco highlight with a little assist handle. Very useful if things get a little crazy. All of your base window controls. Kill off power to the rear, to the windows. Adjusting your side view mirrors. And then off to the side there. You can also lock out the this compartment if you want to. Popping this open. Removable tray with a 12-volt power point on the inside and a decent amount of storage space. Glove box inside of this thing, also lockable using the key fob, and it's got a good amount of space there. And then there's also, along the passenger side of the dash, a nice Bronco lettering highlight there too, which is sharp. This thing has an auto-dimming rearview mirror, basic controls for cabin lights, and then auxiliary switches that are pre-wired as well. So if you wanted to install a winch, if you need any sort of other power points for like light bars and things like that, that is available as an option. Standard inside of the Wildtrak though. You've also got your visor. It's got a business card holder, vanity mirror with the lights built in, and then this thing extends out to block most of the sun. I mean, that's pretty dang far. It's pretty nice. Good. And I mean, the seats, like this thing is really nice. So you've got a few different types of seating material you're going to find inside of the Bronco. So cloth seats, cloth vinyl mix, there's vinyl, like marine grade vinyl. You've also got leather seats on top of that. So that's going to depend on which model of the vehicle that you're in. And that's also going to dictate which way the seats move on top of that. So this one is going to be the only interior choice you're looking at for the Wildtrak version of the Bronco. But as I mentioned, if you look at different packages, like you look at the Raptor versus the base model, seats are going to be vastly different. But seats as far down as it's going to go. I've got so much headspace inside of this thing. It's ridiculous. I guess the big one is the knee space. But I mean, realistically, if you're like 6'6", 6'8", you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this thing. Like probably even taller than that. Because like, I mean, I've got taller than that. You'll be able to fit inside of this thing, which is great. And then this thing also does have the roof that is, it's just a regular soft top. You've got the molded hard top. There's a retractable on top of that. But I mean, this thing, really easy. If you just, overexposure and a half. If you wanted to be able to lift up, you can kind of open it up a few different ways as well. And then just pull down. Up on the clips to install it again. But there are quite a few people that have done some great instructional videos on how to remove the roof and how to open it up and things like that. So check down in the description of the video in order to see the walkthroughs on how that's done. But, did I mention, so I've got the driver's seat set up for myself. Yeah, that's perfect. So the way that I would normally drive, and I mean, looking at second row leg space, I have a boatload of space back here. So as I mentioned, driver's seat set up for myself being 6 feet, and I've got a great amount of knee space, good amount of foot space. And then even still, like up overhead, I'm like almost 5 inches of head space there, which is amazing. But this is good. The second row seat actually is surprisingly comfortable. And one thing that I really like about the seat, you can slightly recline it. So there's nothing along the side. So these things technically are locked into place. But there's a release along the one side, and we would use that in order to fold the seat down. But if you also push back a tiny little bit, get like a tiny little recline. Like a little bit. It's like a few degrees. It's nothing crazy, but it still is kind of cool that you can recline the seat a tiny little bit. It's not too shabby. But I mean, really, there's not too much back here. It's pretty simple. Like same basic highlights along the door because these things are fully removable, right? But the same color scheme, same handles, and then the pocket along the door itself. Behind the driver passenger seat, there's also some pockets back there too, which is useful. A few other things. Window controls are just behind the armrest of the first row. And then you've also got a series of different power points. So there's a USB and then a USB Type-C. There's also a 400 watt power point back here too. So traditional wall outlet, which is pretty useful. But I mean, I did mention, so this seat is set up and I've got a good amount of space, but I've got the passenger seat set up for like as far back as it's going to go. Shifting across, struggle's real. That's shifting across. It's like, it's tight, like obviously a little bit here, but I mean, it's kind of neat because the way that the cushions on the first row seats sit, my knees are like literally perfectly like in the seat. It's actually really neat. Like I can't really move my legs at all, but I mean, I've got a like fraction, like millimeter of space for my knees, but my feet can still move freely. So, is it the most comfortable? No, not really. But I think you probably wouldn't have any issue fitting 3 full-size versions of me. Like it might be tight if they're my size, but younger kids, whatever the case may be, you'll be okay there. This thing also has anchor points and then there are top tethers as well behind these second row seats. But this is good overall. You've got a little light back there. And then just the nature of the way that the Bronco is, all of your airbags are right over top. So you can see airbag logos all over the place. So if you are ever in an accident, you're covered off with all of your necessary airbags there as well. But I think Ford did a great job here. This is just regular carpeted lining inside of this thing. There is the option for rubberized flooring with a drain plug inside of the Badlands. And then you've got the option for the thermoplastic rubber trays right from the factory. You can do aftermarket WeatherTechs as well. And that was a look at the 2023 Ford Bronco, specifically the Wildtrak. What'd you think? Share your thoughts down in the comments section, and you can find a build link for this specific one. And then contact information for Formula Ford down in the description. But if you found this one useful, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone if you think they might find it helpful. And until I see you next time, take care.